So for this Friday, the goal with your city is to find a tall building to look at, and then to kind of do some research on it. So let me do Singapore and just kind of talk through types of things to look for. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay. Everybody see that? So this is, you'll get this view if you go to Google Earth, and if you go to 3D, almost, I'm sure, I guess I'm sure even Auckland is going to have a big 3D view. I think everybody's city, even on the small side, is going to have this. You can go to 2D and you kind of look down, but it's really, I think, cool if you look at it from 3D. It's like having a drone, basically. You can kind of look around. And what I want you to do is, all our cities are going to have these skylines. So find a building that you can kind of work on and research. Almost all of these, if you turn on the layer over here, you'll see there's like a custom, but it's basically the everything layer will have all the labels on it. So you have this kind of toolbar over on your left, and then you have these layers. If you do clean, you just get the view itself, and that might be a good one to show. But if you do everything, you've got all these labels. The Sail at Marina Bay, so that's probably the name of this building right here. The CIMB Bank, and as you get closer, you'll see that there's lots of, that there's more things, like all these, you can figure out what all these buildings are. The Asia Square Tower, MBFC Tower. I'm just going to do the one that I started looking at, which is this Capita Green, because it's kind of a striking building. What do you think all these buildings are? Like, what would be your kind of first assumption? Mel?
Office buildings and like banks and like big corporation companies.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Corporations, banks. Anyone else? I mean, you're not going to find, yeah, Riley?
I think that was me.
Oh, Connor?
I was just saying maybe like a couple like high-rise apartment complexes.
Okay. Yeah, you could have a high-rise condos or apartment in there. You might have, it's possible you'd even have a hotel in here somewhere.
Yeah, I was gonna bring up hotel and possibly even some mixed-use places where the bottom few floors have shopping.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I bet that is the case. Where you'll have a mall or a high-level shopping of some sort in there. You won't, I mean, most of these won't be civic buildings, right? It's not like this is going to be the the Singapore Capitol or something like these. They're going to be mostly private corporate structures that in their, as a whole, contribute to a skyline that you can think of as public in some ways. So hotels, living spaces, the people who would live in this kind of space would be largely professional, who would work in this district. And number 3 is multinational corporations. So let's look at one. I was attracted to this one. You see with the red lotus on top? So this is Capita Green, which is, I'll show you what that is. And let me just kind of move through. So it's got a small Wikipedia page, but you can see up here the like the Lotus, which is actually also an air intake system. You can look, what is Capita? The owner is Capita Land. All right, what is that? Multinational asset management company. Maybe or maybe not where you're going to work after Lawrence, but this is a certain, I mean, remember we talked about global cities and the way what has fueled the rise of global cities is this kind of the rise of the financial sector and the way that that is kind of getting set up in these global cities, right? And so all these buildings are all just inevitably going to be connected to these large financial corporations. And you can go down and see all that Capita, see their holdings. You'll see there's all kinds of malls, Singapore, Malaysia, China, Japan, Vietnam. That's their holdings, right? So this is the company that is servicing this large land, all these land projects, this huge portfolio. You can go further and see that there's a Facebook page for it. You know, they've got a little get in touch with us here, leasing, how may we assist you? You know, if I'd be tempted to write in here and ask them if I could visit or, you know, something like that. Here you can see the first floor, various information. There's a YouTube video. I won't have us watch it here, but it's got an interview with the companies that were designing it and putting it up. You notice that they've got all these kind of green plants, right? So this is like an organic, and we saw that with the tourist section of Singapore, right? That ties into this way of presenting itself that Singapore has. Here's another one talking about the building, another video, and then the web page for Capita Green. So let me kind of come out, stop the share. What sort of questions? So you've kind of seen the building. What kind of questions can we ask about a large building like this? I think you'll find, by the way, that for every building you choose, you'll be able to find, if you start digging a little bit, you'll find information about it. So what your job is, your specific task is to take a look at your skyline, locate a building that looks interesting, and figure out who owns it, what it does, what's unique about it. But let's think for a little bit, what kind of questions can you ask about these buildings? Yeah, Audrey.
If there's like any level of like public engagement, because I've been looking at some of the buildings in Hong Kong, and I can't remember the name of it, but it's the tallest one in Hong Kong.
I can picture it.
Yeah, the bottom floor is like shopping centers, and then the first couple of floors, well, not couple, there's a lot of them, are like office spaces, and then the 100th floor is like restaurants, and then more shopping, and then there's a hotel. And so this isn't just like a purely business building, there's some sort of like public interaction in this building that's going on.
Okay. So what is the name, and how would you define? I mean, a mall is still private space, but it's open to the public, is what you're saying. So is there any kind of, maybe make a division there. So to what extent is it open to the public? And is there any attempt at being public space? Like those memorials, is there like, it'd be really interesting if there was like a public, like a marker or a memorial site within these, but they probably won't find that, right? It's going to be kind of private shopping and malls. But see what you find in that way. Mel?
The style of building, like the architecture, and like if it sort of fits in with all the other buildings in the surrounding area. So like, is there a specific architect, and like if it was built at the same time as all the other buildings, and like what significance it holds to like its surroundings?
Okay, yeah. So the architecture of the building. Can you look at the firm? Does anyone give any keywords for like what kind of style this is? I think all our big buildings are going to look basically the same, but like the little lotus at the top, right? I'm guessing that Moscow doesn't have a lot of buildings with lotus shapes on the top, right? That's going to be more of a tropical located city. But what are, so very similar architecture, glass panes lining the side, but details that kind of make it feel like it's in place or fitting for its place. So yeah, see if you can get some information about the architecture. For example, this one won some awards, so that would be a direction I would push in thinking about this. What else can we say about big buildings, tall buildings? Or they're just, I mean, we see these things all the time, right? So like, what are they exactly, Connor?
I was gonna say, I don't know, this like might kind of overlap with like what Mel was saying, but like I was kind of thinking about how like relevant the building is to like the people of the city. So like whether it's like iconic and if people kind of like look at it as like a certain way, like I think of like the Shard in London, like everybody's like, or like that one building in London that people call it like the pickle.
Yeah.
Like if it has like a nickname or if people kind of like make fun of it or something like that, like how relevant it is to like the people of the city.
Okay. Yeah, the gherkin, right? Instead of the
Yeah, yeah, the pickle, the gherkin, I mean.
Yeah. Yeah, is there, to what extent does the building contribute to like the view of people's understanding of themselves? A lot of these buildings, like with the lotus flower, they're aiming at being meaningful to their place and to their site. Any other thoughts? Yeah.
Maybe if there's like any like controversy around the building, because I know one building in London, the one that's kind of like swooped, the way that like the sun would hit like the full glass side just created like extreme heat down on the street, and you could actually like fry an egg when the sun hit it right like on the sidewalk. And so because of that, there was like a lot of controversy because it was causing a lot of damage to people's cars and stuff. And so then the city of London had to step in and like tell them that they had to put like shades or something, some coating on the window so it wouldn't like reflect so much heat. So maybe that would be like an interesting take if there's like any controversy with your building.
Yeah, that's good. Is that the walkie-talkie building basically?
Yeah, I didn't want to call it the walkie-talkie building, but I'm like, it's that one.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, that's interesting. Is there a story that's surrounding its building or a controversy? I mean, all of your buildings you're gonna be surprised at how much you turn up, that as you start looking into these things. Can you visit it as a tourist? I think it'll be surprising how few, there's the Empire State Building or something. There's a few famous buildings, but mostly these are buildings that aren't meant to be visited by tourists. They're meant to be taken in as part of the skyline, but they are very private. Maybe the lower floors will be a store, but they're not open to the public. I couldn't go wandering out of architectural interest into the middle floors of these buildings to see what I find, right? That's to my dismay. I have been kicked out of buildings trying to take pictures. So, but they're not really set up to do that. Let me just quickly, I'm going to share a screen one more time. Is this it? Oh yeah. So look at the interior space. I mean, this is like generic office space, right? This is floors and floors of this kind of, it's tech. This is not library work, right? This is not the library of, this is like tech floor and floor spacing. Gyms, workout space, you know, who's being attracted by this? It's young, you know, almost completely young global professionals. Now, you might be able to get to the Sky Forest dining. Maybe that's open to me. So that's probably where I would head with this. Iconic, cool void. So that's what they call this open space up at the top. So anyways, those, you know, those are also interesting to the extent that you can see what the space is like inside. It's not going to be historic, traditional. It's all your buildings are going to look basically like that. But the more you can kind of show that and think about how it's maybe being, there's a twist because of it's in Moscow instead of Singapore, or Los Angeles instead of Auckland, right? But that's the type of worker and workspace that it generates the millions and millions of dollars that allows for this type of building to be built. So is this clear? That's the goal. You'll have 4 minutes. I'm trying to I want to be able to finish talking about our book, but we will go through in 4 minutes. So I'll that's what you'll have for the presentations. All right. I'm going to stop.